Hello, I'm ShieldWar100 and welcome back to my channel, and we're going to be doing some more Chain of Command this time around, another game report. The situation here is it's early June 1944 and this is the road to Caen. A major objective for D-Day and, well, for the Normandy campaign as overall for the Allies. Yes, a very confusing time as well for the German army in Normandy, in France in general, actually, all the way up to high command, I believe. Yes, it's a bit of a mess and for all sides, and this is... Going back to the intro though to my video, this is what I think of as a really... I've put together a pretty good demonstration scenario if you're showing someone new to the game. Maybe they've played some other World War II miniatures games before, such as Bolt Action or something, but if you want to demonstrate Chain of Command, this I think I've hit upon a pretty good one, and I'll tell you why as and when we get to it. But yes, this is the British forces are pushing up from their beaches towards Caen. It was as they were, charged with taking it, and yes, they've run into a bit of a problem along the road here. Well, one of the roads, as they pass through this shattered Normandy hamlet here, in the form of intelligence, as they've come across an 88 gun, 88mm German anti-tank gun, stroke anti-aircraft gun, on the road here, covering this crossroads. Maybe it's been left behind, maybe it's been positioned here deliberately, but they got to make sure they take this position, and they've, yes, their scouts spotted it. Unfortunately, their aircraft haven't been able to deal with it, and so yes, they can't delay any longer, and they've got so they're sending forward a platoon of infantry to clear the area of this and any surviving German forces around. Okay, so yeah, and that's what they've done. The British have managed to infiltrate up to here. As you can see, a couple of universal carriers which will be acting as their jump off points for purposes of these rules, so one here, and yes, their task is to clear this crossroads. If they can do that, they'll win. Okay, and yeah, that's it. The Germans will be trying to stop them with the forces at their disposal. But so if you want to set up this game, I'll tell you what you need as we go, but I'll just start with the board, okay? Because I think this is a really good demonstration game to get an idea as to how this is different to other types of World War II game, because what the important thing is, you have the road going up the board, obviously the defended position, whether it's an 88 you've got or some other big anti-tank gun or otherwise, in a defended position, couple of barbed wire sets, doesn't go too wrong, some buildings for flavour, yeah, but what is really important is this big, fairly open killing ground around it, which is quite often missing from other wargaming tables, but it does happen in did happen in real life, and this anti-tank gun needs to be well sighted, so I suppose the problem, so to speak, that we're going to be dealing with. The attacking allies is good to have some woods. I'm just going to get rid of a cat because he's decided to join us at the wrong moment. Come on, you. Bye bye. And yeah, the two woods here and here, so just some light cover, not dense woodland. I'm going to say you can see into and out of it 4 inches or so. I've got a couple of extra hedge lines here for the British to use if they need to, but actually quite a large area to attack, open area to attack, which is going to be a problem for them, and will demonstrate how these rules really benefit from the sort of the fire and movement aspect, as opposed to the just chuck your forces forwards and move through cover and stuff, because it's always there, because it wasn't always there. And yeah, it's an interesting one as to how you can attack these positions, and yeah, and how these rules really work for that, okay, or not. Just interestingly as well, I've played this scenario a few times with people, and I've had results go both ways, so that must be something good for it, okay. But yeah, so the couple of wooded areas with a bit of a gap in between, the road going along, a few buildings for paranoid allied players to have to hide around, to worry about whether they got Germans in them or not. Just cover where the German jump off points are. We've got one down here behind this building, just one here at the crossroads itself, and I'll pop one over here by this building on this side of the road. But you can mix and match it as you wish. It's just down to what's in your collection. I'm just trying to give you an example. Every time I've set it up, I've never quite managed to get it the same. So yeah, there we are. Okay, enough of this dilly-dallying. I'm going to get on and show you what forces are in which in which side, and how you might be able to adapt your collection to those. Okay, back in a sec. Right, for the Allies, as I said earlier, I'm going with a British platoon here, but you could actually substitute this in for any of the Western Allies, really, I guess, if you come to it, because it doesn't have to just be pushing towards Caen. It could be pushing into the Contentin Peninsula or something. So therefore, Americans or Canadians, whatever, really. So here we go. But I'm going with a standard British platoon of regular infantry, and that consists of 3 squads here, and here, each comprising 2 teams. Well, I'm going to assume you know the chain of command rules, at least from either my previous videos or from the book itself. So yeah, 2 teams, rifle, light machine gun, and a junior leader. Also 2 senior leaders here. Okay, a light mortar team and a Piat team for completeness, just in case, I guess. And I've also given them a bit of reinforcement in forms of a heavy machine gun team, a Maxim there, and also a Churchill tank as well for fun. Excuse me. Shoot. Honestly, I don't know. When I start filming, that's when they decide to come up and start messing around. Honestly, trying to eat the hedges. I don't get it. Well, cats, annoying. But yeah, a Churchill tank. The Churchill has to arrive up this road, as is the rules, which is unfortunately in the size of the 88. So. Yeah, it's important. I recommend giving the Allies. Point of thing. The person you're demonstrating to, I recommend they control the Allies for this, because they're going to have a better. They're going to actually then be learning how how this game really helps. Understand how you attack in this game, and gives them something to do as opposed to sitting static and shooting at people. And I think it's a really good training scenario. Give them some armor. But don't make it too good for the Germans to deal with, obviously. And a nice full platoon, maybe a little bit of support, and that's it. Okay, keep it relatively simple, but you can get all the rules in there. Okay, and like I said, they'll be deploying from these 2 jump-off points. You can use anything in terms of counters, your regular ones. I'm just using the universal carriers because I like the models, and the Germans aren't going to be attacking them. Trust me, they don't have enough. So it'll just be down to, can the Germans wear down this attack to make its wheels fall off or not. Okay, right, well, let's see what's going to be what's going to be defending against these people on the German side. And here they are, heavily outnumbered are the Germans. Right, so I've deployed the 88mm guns crew around it, so that's where they'll be staying for the duration of the game, in its hard cover position here. Okay, so they're going to be starting on the board. The rest will be deploying on as the game goes in the normal chain of command fashion. Okay, around the jump-off points. And yes, it centres around this senior leader here, who is having a really bad time. It's been a very confusing day for the Germans, like I said, and clear direction from higher up was critically lacking early on in the campaign, and so he has cobbled together this force to he's holding this position because he's here and he's not been told to go anywhere else, and as far as he's aware, he's just got to make do with what he's got, despite the fact he hasn't got a full force to do so. So he has 1 squad of grenadiers, standard junior leader, 6-man rifle team, and a light machine gun team here as well. So just the 1 squad. Okay, very much shy of what he'd hoped to be, but maybe others have been detached, added to others. They're hunting reports of allied paratroopers somewhere, or whatever, or maybe they've just not been able to get extracted from the beach, or they've been sent towards the beach, or something else. Maybe he doesn't know where they've gone. Maybe they're held up trying to defend another crossroads somewhere. But either way, they're stretched too thin, and he's got to make do with what he's got. So senior leader, his squad, and a heavy machine gun team as well. okay, and this is going to provide some much needed firepower for the Germans. So they're lacking in men, but they are not lacking in firepower across the German defenders here. But that's all they've got to do, and the only thing that's going to be starting on the board is this. The Allies are going to have to push forwards across, well, at some point they're going to have to cross the open ground, and yeah, they've got some scary guns pointing at them, but yeah, that's it. So overall you need a few Germans, a platoon at least of allies, and a few support here and there for to taste, really, and you can set this game up. And yeah, I think it kind of works. But actually, let's get started playing it, and we'll see if it works in practice when I demonstrate it. Probably not. Let's find out. Okay, as the attackers, it makes sense that the British went first, and yeah, they had their first command phase, not too bad. They got a role which would probably, in many sets of rules, would be kind of useless, but quite handy for this stage of the game, to be perfectly honest. That 5 obviously gives them their first chain of, point towards chain of command, so we get rid of that. There we go. And the rest we use to deploy units. So we've got a 2 there to pop down 1 squad of regular British infantry, combine together the 2 of the 1s to pop down another one, and finally use the last one to put down the light mortar team, the 2-inch mortar. And it immediately started firing, trying to put down smoke. A little bit of deviation meant it didn't quite go where it wanted to be, but yeah, it'll do for now, I guess. And it's certainly announced the British presence and attack to the Germans now, who we're going to go to right now. Okay, here we go. Right, here's the German command row. As you can see, 1-5 there to go towards their first point of chain of command. And the rest here, 2 4s, a 1 and a 3, would be sufficient for them to deploy the entirety of the rest of their force. However, they've opted not to. There's no British in sight as yet, and so therefore revealing their locations to the Allies would be a bad idea, if you ask me. And yeah, I mean, that's the thing. This is what makes Chain of Command so much different to others, because there's really no incentive in other rule sets to not just deploying everything you can and advancing on the enemy. I found in some rules, some won't be named rule sets for World War II, but in this, there's nothing that quite slows down an enemy advance than you not having deployed all your stuff. So yeah, at this point, there's no. The Germans are going to play it cagey, but start building up the chain of command, points, and yes, we'll let the forfeit the initiative to the Allies for the moment. Right, back in a sec. Well, the British are wasting no time in starting to push up. Here's their command role, a bit of a weird one, to be perfectly honest. A lot of senior leaders can activate on all these 4s, but they only chose to put 1 on. You want to keep 1 back so as to make sure you can deploy what you need when you need to in the future. So 1-4 was used to pop down their platoon leader, and yes, he wasted no time. He ordered the mortar to put down some much more accurate smoke this time, between them both now blocking the 88's line of fire down to the wooded area. He then was within range to give these guys a kick up the bum to move forwards. Being in woods, they could only move maximum of 2 dice inches forwards, which they did, and they're just poking out the woods now. He then gave the other squad here a polite nudge, and they moved up. They're still within they're still too far into the wood to be seen out, but they are nonetheless moving out and hoping to establish something of a fire base. One of these 1s here was used to deploy the Maxim team here, okay, the machine gun, and yeah, that's all they're going to be doing for the time being. They're going to wait to see where they're needed, but they're at least on the table now. Don't want to put too much onto the board, because you don't want to leave yourself unable to actually control your models and them just standing around getting shot, but yeah, I think this is a reasonable risk to take. They're quite safe here for now. Okay, yeah, that concludes this. This smoke, don't forget, will remain on the board until the first turn ends, and that will rely on either a very unusual event happening, or one side or the other building up enough chain of command points to end the turn. And that's not gonna, doesn't look like it's gonna happen anytime soon. But we'll see. The Germans will be hoping to race for it now, while the British are advancing across the open. The second command phase for the Germans played out very much like the first one, unfortunately for them. Their dice roll with no fires yielded no more progress towards a chain of command points, which could end the turn and end the smoke, but and therefore, without any British in sight to shoot at, there's been really no point deploying anything just yet. It's, you know, it makes for, people might question, oh well, this game then nothing happens, obviously, but no, it does. It's just a case of waiting to the right moment, and this really is not the right moment for the Germans. They're going to hold it tight, and yes, they've got to, because they've got to husband their resources very carefully. Well, quite an interesting phase for the British, as they rolled a really useful set of numbers there, as you might be able to interpret. The 5 goes towards their chain of command. The 3 was used immediately to move the squad trying to infiltrate up the board. They didn't roll very high on their movement, sort of stumbled into the open, but the smoke will cover them for now, so they're safe. But don't let that smoke dissipate, otherwise they're going to really regret it. Moving back, we had a 4 which activated this senior leader here. He ordered the mortar to fire some smoke to cover the advance out of the woods by the other squad. Unfortunately landed a bit short, wanted it here, ended up here, so yes, it's actually ended up where the squad wants to go. He also ordered the squad to move forwards, and they've managed to reach the first hedge, so they're out of the woods now. But they're covered by the smoke, so they're still kind of safe. What else? I think that concluded his activation, and yes, the final 3 was used to bring on the Churchill up the road. I really am threatening to overstretch the forces on the board for the British, but they've got to try and leverage this weighted numbers they've got, and you've got a tank, might as well use it. It's in a demonstration, the person will want to use the tank, so I figured why not bring it on for this. And yeah, so here we go. It's moved up and it can deploy and fire, and it did so, and actually did really well. If I just take you over to the 88, managed to kill 2 of the 7 crew and cause a point of shock. So yes, pretty good. The tank gun on the Churchill being no great respecter of cover or being dug in or whatever. So yeah, there you go. That concludes the British activation, and now yes, the Germans have got something to chew on as and when they need to. But let's get on, find out what they're going to be getting up to next. Okay, well, the Germans have decided that now, with the Allied armour rolling up the road, was the time to strike. And here's their command roll. So, as we all know, the 6 on its own does nothing at all. The 3 there was used to activate the junior leader, with the anti-tank gun, the 88, and it turned and fired down the road, and in one crescendoing shot brewed up the Churchill. Or those British tank crews knew how dangerous 88s were from the desert, but sadly they needed this crossroads. They needed to move forwards, and it wasn't a chance to go around. And unfortunately, this brave crew paid the price for British hubris. And the Churchill itself is a very heavily armoured tank, but the 88 is overwhelming firepower, let's put it that way, and it was enough to do it in one. Rolled an 11 on the 2 dice to hit, incidentally, so there was no doubt that it had managed to score a hit. Oh well, that's dangerous. It's a dangerous job attacking any position in World War II, in my opinion. But hey, yeah. So that was that. That was the 3 out of the way. Then, the 2 here was used to deploy the squad of the Germans into this building over here from this jump-off point in the shadow. Yeah, they got in, and they so they're spread evenly throughout the building, really, and they were actually able to draw a bead from up here past the smoke into the British advancing across the open, only with the light machine gun, which was back at the window, and a couple of the riflemen. There's some underneath this floor that you can see as well. They opened fire on the British as they were moving across, but obviously the British obviously trying to move quickly, cautiously, and the smoke probably wasn't helping. So yeah, only a couple of points of shock was all that resulted from that firepower. And but yeah, those Brits need to get going. And yes, so the British have found out that the Germans definitely are here in some degree of force, and yeah, they've got a fight on their hands now. And yeah, they see they're going to take the fight to the enemy or not. Well, yes, the British next command roll was this: 2 5s going towards chain of command, 2 6s indicate they will get to go again, leaving them with a solitary 2 to actually move people around with. And there wasn't really much of a cause for debate as to who that should be, as it was the unit over here with bullet impacts pinging up around their heels. They really got to move on. Despite having a couple of points of shock, they moved their furthest yet, I think, and zipped just to enter the woods on the other side of on the far side of the table here. And yeah, then it'll be over to the British to go again. They've really got to start hopefully they can make use of this initiative they've suddenly achieved. The short answer, not really. The 6 on its own does nothing. A 1 and 3 4s doesn't really lend itself to deft manoeuvres right now. The 1 was used by the mortar here, tried to put down some smoke directly onto the 88 but scattered over there. So yeah, should have thought about that earlier, I suppose, putting it directly on them, but it's prone to scattering when it's out of sight, so might have just been wasting bunches of time. Better to just put down the walls of smoke there. But yeah, that's that. The 4 was actually used by the senior leader, who started to move into, across the woods, hopefully possibly trying to catch up with these guys. He also ordered the Maxim team to start moving up as well, but not the most dynamic follow-up considering what could have been, but must be the sudden huge explosion from the Churchill was probably what probably caused some disruption in the Allied lines. Right, back to the Germans. Well, with the Germans rolling this, a couple of points more towards chain of command is useful, but not really much they can do with the other dice rolls, which would be good in other circumstances. Good variety of units they could potentially activate, but just not to be, unfortunately for them, because there's just nothing left in line of sight. These British have moved cannily into the woods, too deep to be seen, and the others are just a little bit too far in or covered by smoke. So they're going to wave it and put themselves on guard, ready for the Allies to suddenly reveal themselves. They're not sure which direction they're actually going to be coming into sight from first, though, so not putting Overwatch on yet. The British next didn't get a great roll either. A 6 does nothing. The 2 5s actually gives them a whole chain of command point, which is good, and the 2 and the 1 were joined together to make 3, because adding with shield wall, and that activated this junior leader. He moved up his units and took off a point of shock from the squad as a whole. So that concludes the British. We'll go back to the dastardly Germans. Yeah, 6 it does nothing for the Germans. 2 5s though puts them up to 5 points towards their chain of command, and the 2 1s did really not do anything at all for them, for much the same reasons as before. The British are still not putting in more things out for them to shoot at, and the smoke is just ever encroaching. But the Germans are almost ready to end the turn with a chain of command, hopefully for them. That will clear a lot of the smoke and open up a lot of lines of fire, they think. So don't go anywhere yet, folks. This is going to be a lot of bullets flying at some point. And here's a really handy looking roll for the British. Yeah, they have used it to some degree as well. First of all, the 3 was used, one of the 3s was used to move this squad ever further up the board and take off their last point of shock with their junior leader. The senior leader activated, moved himself, continued his exodus across up the board, making use of the smoke while it's still there to to make cover for himself. Before he went, he activated the mortar to put some more cover down here, and the Maxim team to move up to the hedge. So yes, the British really are moving into good firing positions now, just ready for this smoke to maybe clear or whatever, to put down cover as and when necessary. The squad to the right of them was activated and adopted a tactical stance, digging in with their eyebrows in readiness for the maelstrom to come. And that concludes the British activation. Okay, so things really are moving into position now, so the Germans now have to move to cover. Well, it's happened. It's finally happened. The Germans have rolled enough fires to accrue a chain of command point. They've got their various, there's 1 and the 2 that adds together to make a 3. Activate this junior leader to put this squad on Overwatch. The 3 on its own puts the 88mm gun on Overwatch. Still not choosing to deploy their senior leader in case they need him off board. But then with the chain of command point, they're going to spend that to end the turn. That then ends all the smoke on the board, So there you go. Germans are on Overwatch, ready for any Allied movements now, and unfortunately there's the Allied senior leader. That's not a place where you want to be when the smoke clears at all, so that could be bad. If he tries to move, he could just take an 88 shot or something, or well, we'll see. Anyway, yes, that concludes that. The smoke has now cleared, and well, I guess this might signal the start of some real fireworks. And in the moment of need, I think the British luck has changed a little bit, with a 5 there giving them another point towards a chain of command, but also the 2 6s enabling them to go again after this, so they're going to get a rare double move. Hurrah! The 1 was used to emergency put down some smoke in front of their senior leader, just in the nick of time. That was a bit of a fluke for them. And the 2 was used, she's got it front, to open fire and at the Germans in the building. They opened up, only did 1 point of shock, unfortunately for them. The Germans retaliated within the building because they're on Overwatch. Did nothing, surprisingly, with the weight of their firepower against the British. However, the 88mm then had a shot using its Overwatch and killed 1 member of the Bren team and 2 members of the rifle team there. So 3 dead British riflemen altogether, unfortunately for the British. So but that has drawn the German fire over to this part of the board, and the British are about to roll again. And a further very tasty roll for the Allies there, giving them another chain of command with the old 5 there. The 4 was used to move their senior leader all the way into the woods over here nicely. There's a 2 back there as well, used to bring this squad further into position, ready to move right round the German flank. And then, yes, something very tricky that I haven't actually done on camera before, but it is a really good tactic, is they used their chain of command point, took that way, to move up one of their jump off points from here to here. As you can see, don't forget, it's a universal carrier in like model only. So this is their jump off point. It's moved up, and now they can deploy from there, which they did use. The 3 popped this squad down, which their junior leader using them to activate, and he used his so they all opened fire upon the Germans in this building. He activated the Bren gun to concentrate its firepower on the German light machine gun as well, killing one of the gunners in there, and altogether, well, after that, I'll just go the combined firepower of them and these 2, this squad, and the maximum medium machine gun, not heavy, so it counts as a medium in these rules, was enough to do huge damage to the Germans in this building. 1 dead off each. It's like a total. It's 1 dead off each team, and also a bunch of shock on both of them, all together as well. They're not pinned, but they are certainly feeling the rate of firepower from massed British guns, and they did that by using the remaining 4 to deploy their last senior leader just there, and he activated the remaining of the squads and teams which are in the area. So that's how all those British were able to open fire. Okay, yeah, so pretty dashed useful thing. The Germans are definitely involved in a firefight here, but yes, all the British are now pretty much committed to the board, and so they really have to make sure that this attack works, and it's back to the Germans. And the firefight begins in earnest, despite a relatively difficult role for the Germans, given the fact they need to activate units. The 1 and the 3 does allow them to join the firefight in earnest, and yes, so with the 1 they use it to deploy the heavy machine gun team here, which opened fire into the squad that just deployed for the British, killing a guy, putting down a point of shock. The Germans in the building activated with the 3, using their junior leader to take some shock off, and then opening fire on this same squad, another point of shock going on to the British as well. So yes, we're getting some heavy firepower in here now, and the Germans, though, just like the British, are almost out of things to deploy. So yeah, just the senior leader left for the Germans. If they just get a 4, they'll be able to do it. Yep, another 6 and 2 5s, not really doing much for for activating units, putting the Allies though on 4 more points towards chain of command. However, the 1 and the 4 was useful in its own way, the 1 being used to put some more smoke down in the distance, as you can see over there, and the 4 activating the senior leader in this little cluster here, getting the entire fire base to open up and causing shock and the odd casualty to blossom among the Axis ranks with some inspired die rolls, I have to say. So yes, 2 more dead riflemen in the building for the Germans, another point of shock on the light machine gun team, meaning there's as much shock as models in the team, but they're not pinned yet, need to exceed that, and even a couple of points of shock on the 88, and another crewman dead. They're down to 4 crewmen there, so yeah, it's been pretty nasty round, but the Germans, you don't underestimate the firepower they can throw back your way, and we're about to find that out. Right, and there's the German command. Still, I think we're still turn 2, but yeah, the 6 does nothing. The 4 was used to bring on this senior commander who's popped down here. It was very tempting to bring him on over here next to this jump off point, so as to ensure the continued activation of the heavy machine gun, but he really was needed back here to get rid of some shock, and that he did. He took 2 points of shock off of the 88mm and ordered it to fire as well, which it did into the Maxim team, killing 1 person, putting 2 points of shock on there. So yeah, its presence remains felt, shall we say. The heavy machine gun activated on the 1 there and poured fire into it, hit lots and did every single hit, causing, because the counters being in the open against a heavy machine gun, caused a point of shock. No kills actually on this squad at all, but enough firepower between the heavy machine gun and then the subsequently activating remaining troops in this building to pin both the Bren team and the rifle team just here. Very much reducing the firepower coming out of the British lines at a stroke, because the amount of the German bullets whiz into their position, and they hunker right down to get out to hopefully save their necks. So yeah, not a bad round of firing for the Germans. These British will continue to be pinned until turn end, and that's assuming they manage to get some shock off of their ranks. Well, let's find out what they can do about it. We'll go back to the British. Okay, well, back to the British, and the 6 again does nothing. The 5 gives them another point towards chain of command, and yes, these 3 dice here were usable. So the 2 was used to activate the squad over here, moving them even further into position. It's taken a long time for them to get over there, but you know, that's the British hope, I think, at the moment. The 3 was used to activate the junior leader in here to take off a couple of points of shock. That's all he did. He just trying to get as much shock off as possible himself. And the 4 was used by the senior leader in this little group here, take 1 point of shock off the Maxim to get it to open fire on the 88mm with no effect, unfortunately, for the British. And he activated this squad here to open fire on the Germans in the building, who just had enough weight of firepower chucked into them to do some real damage. The light machine gun, unfortunately, is now pinned after accruing some more shock, and another man was killed from the rifleman team, meaning they've got 2 points of shock and 2 remaining riflemen, which is not good for them. So yeah, the whole squad on the brink of going pinned, but crucially the light machine gun is pinned. So right, that's that then. Back to the Germans. Well, the Germans are giving as good as they're getting. Sorry, 2 6s means they'll be going again, and the 2 4s were used to combine together. 2 2s, used together to create a 4. Activated the senior leader, who took off a bunch of shock from the troops in the building. By turn end, hopefully they'll be able to rally off that pin status on their machine gun. The 3 was used on the junior leader, who's still alive, on the 88mm, who opened fire again on the Maxim, which killed 2, put another point of shock on. The remaining man was broken and ran away, taking 2 points off the force morale of the British again. And yeah, that's nasty, because the British force morale is actually on 6 now. It lost a couple of points for the dead Churchill, a couple of points for this now, and it's looking a bit ropey for the British if they can push home this attack before they lose their nerve. But yeah, and the Germans are just about to go again, so we'll see what happens. Well, could the Germans turn this into a crucial advantage? The short answer no, the long answer no. And right, 2 fires gives them 5 points on their chain of command die, and yes, again, 2 2s and a 3 meant that they Well, they did exactly as they did before. They put both of them together, both the twos together to activate the senior leader, who took off all the remaining shock, activated the squad inside to open fire to no effect, unfortunately, still pinned crucially where it counts, so there you are. And the 3 was used on the junior leader here, who moved along the moved the sights along the hedge, opened fire on the pinned British, but because the British were pinned and therefore digging in with their eyebrows, they did not do anything either. There were just literally a load of dice came up and they were all a pip off of doing anything at all. So there you go. The Germans not having super luck, and crucially no ones in either of the last 2 command die rolls, which means that this heavy machine gun hasn't been able to fire. Putting a random team out on its own can be problematic for your command and control. Fancy that. Okay, the British got a decent roll. The 5 gives them a whole chain of command point again. They have chosen not to use it yet, though. Right, and plenty of dice they can use here. So the 4. We'll go for this 3 first. It was easy. Just this junior leader in this squad activated to take off a couple of points of shock. Nice. The 4 here was used to activate this senior leader here. Took 1 point of shock off of the fleeing Maxim crewman, so that he will no longer be broken should the turn end, which would be useful. And he activated the squad behind a fire up into this building again, inflicting a point of shock on the rifle team, so to speak, and killing the light machine gun's friend. So there's only 1 light machine gunner left in there and he's pinned, so yeah, that will reduce the amount of firepower coming out of that building again anyway, so wow. What was I going to say? Oh yes, and finally he used his last command initiative to take off another point of shock from the rifle, from the squad in front, because they were carrying so much. The remaining 2 twos were added together, and I'm going to have to travel around the board, sorry, to activate the senior leader, who moved up to the squad which was preparing behind the smoke cover, and they moved out in gusto when he activated them and ordered them to move. They've gone up and they have sealed off this jump off point for the Germans. Not that the Germans can really use it anymore. Incidentally, for this demonstration scenario, considering the Germans got such a small force, I'm not giving them a force morale value. It's just down to whether or not the British can really force this objective point before their morale breaks or not. Okay, but yeah, they're around the back here. Doesn't trigger close combat with the Germans inside the building because there's such a solid wall between them. Okay, and yeah, until one side or the other voluntarily tries to storm the other, then that's going to remain the way it is. But yeah, it doesn't look like the Germans can really do much about this. The British have really snuck around their position, so we'll see how that goes in the fullness of time. Okay, but that does conclude the British activation, and they're really, yeah, they're starting to leverage their weighted numbers now, but Germans have still got a lot of firepower on the board. Yep, and now the Germans have got a chain of command point with that 5, giving them a whole one. Nice, and the rest of the dice, the 2 twos were added together to make 4 to activate him. The 1 was used to activate the heavy machine gun. Everything converged fire on the British squad at the front here, and it was enough to kill 2 of the riflemen. Oof. And put another couple of points or so of shock on the British brain gun team, ensuring that they'll remain pinned when the turn ends, as it does now, because the Germans will be picking up their die to enter turn 3 technically, which removes the pin from their light machine gun, reduced to 1 band, but still, and yes, it will further effect. It will have the British Bren team still got 4 points of shock and is still pinned. The rifle team, I believe, is down to 4. No, it's down to 3 men, sorry, so they're still pinned. Boo for them. But however, the British Maxim was reduced to 1 man, but he's only got 1 point of shock, so he's neither pinned nor broken anymore. He's just hanging around on his own at the back. Probably not going to get involved again. Don't want to take the force morale loss for losing a whole team, but yeah. He's not broken and routing off the board. But that does conclude the German activation phase. Go back to the British and see if they can do something. And yeah, a good turn for the British. The 6 went, good does nothing. The rest of the dice though did. We'll start with the singular 1 there, this one, get rid of that. That was the 2-inch mortar opening fire with high explosive for the first time in the game and failing to hit anything. Wow. We got 2 4s left, both were used to activate the senior leaders. The one over here just took a couple of more points off a shock off the front, and the back line opened fire, did more damage, killed another German rifleman. There's only one German rifleman, one German light machine gunner, and the junior leader left alive in this building. Crikey, this squad has served its country. Wow. And the remaining 4 was used over here to activate the last senior leader, who ran over, joined the squad, and the last 2 command initiatives ordered them to throw hand grenades into the building, which did an amazing job. Both hit, and every die did something. It's 3 dead Germans and 3 points of shock, leaving the heavy machine gun crew pinned as well. So nasty stuff. Yes, so yeah, that's a very solid attack there from the British down the flank, and the German firepower is being decimated, but they still have the crossroads and they still have the 88. So yeah, there you go. Right, time to move back to the Germans. Okay, Germans had a pretty good roll, lots of things to do, another 5 there for chain of command, but yeah, sufficient to activate everything back here, but not the heavy machine gun, which requires a 1 on a die to be able to activate it, and they didn't get 1 on their command, so there you go. But it was sufficient to activate the senior leader, etc., to reorganise this squad in here to just the light machine gun, team, to have a crewman, so it can fire at full effect. The rifle team no longer exists, but there's a junior leader still in there. There he is, to give some orders as well. But they opened fire on full dice, and unfortunately, because this squad over here is still pinned, they're still counting their cover as a point higher. Heavy cover just resulted in no damage being done. They got lucky. However, the 88 opened fire again and killed another man and popped another point of shock down, I think. Yes, it did. So yeah, it's still putting the pressure on this squad, but yeah, our options running out for the Germans. Time will tell. And another handy looking British command roll. Can't complain about all these 4s that are coming up, allowing them to do a lot of things. It could have been a very different story for them, but on the end of the day, they were able to pull things around quite nicely here. As yes, the fire base opened up again and took off a bunch of shock as well, and finished off the light machine gun team for the Germans. Interesting, the junior leader, I have been making leader casualty rolls throughout the game, and not a single leader on either side has been hit by accident or on purpose so far this game. So yeah, it's just the junior leader left inside the building. These 2 guys, sadly, having fought to the last. Ooh, nasty stuff. So it's just a junior leader with an MP40 left. There's probably not a lot he can do, but well, okay. Yeah, that's it for that's that. The British over here with a 4 used the senior leader to activate them, and they moved around using 3 dice to clear a huge amount of distance, and took a point of shock on each team, but he had 3 command initiatives, 1 to activate them, and the remaining 2 took those shock off. So there you go, they have swept around the side. It's time for do or die, I think, as far as the British are concerned. They're the German. Yeah, they decided to bypass this German heavy machine gun because it's pinned, which is halving its firepower. It still has shock on it as well. It's not going to be chucking out a lot of dice, and yeah, so they're going to try and push home this attack now. The British then ended the turn with their accumulated chain of command die, which has unpinned the squad at the front, and yeah, that's that. Time to go back to the Germans, see if they can do anything at all really at this point. Yeah, the Germans really scraping things now. They got another point towards chain of command, not much use at this point of the game. The 6 does nothing. The 4, however, activated the senior leader, who ordered the lone junior leader out of the building just to save his neck, and he activated the 88mm. It swung around and opened fire on the British, but just only succeeded in causing a singular casualty of a rifleman on the British side. So not quite. I mean, it's not really. The 88 is great. It's just equally great against people advancing in the open as it is against people almost in hard cover. So yeah, it's good, but it's not going to kill an entire squad in one go. But yeah, I mean, it's not really designed for that, I don't think. You know, not at this range anyway. It's a silly range. Right, okay, we're going to go back now to the British, see if they can round things off. And yeah, that does conclude the game. The British had a really handy roll there, enabled them to move up their units, take off all the remaining shock. This squad at the front, who then opened fire on the 88, putting a couple of points of shock on. They activated the squad over here, who then used 3 dice to assault the German 88 battery at the crossroads, and that was enough to finish off the German defenders. They took 4 points of four casualties, wiping out the crew, and 3 casualties in return to the British. But yeah, that leaves the crossroads in British hands, and there's very little the Germans can do about it. They've got no troops left, really. The remaining Germans will probably just hand themselves in at this point, and that's that. The British took huge damage, though, taking these crossroads, as would probably be noted throughout the Normandy campaign. And yeah, nasty stuff, but sufficient to take the position this time. In reality, the battle for Normandy was a much longer slog than the Allies ideally wanted, but one they probably could have easily forsworn if they had a bit of foreknowledge, but of what the Germans were deploying. But yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this game. It makes for a great demonstration. I hope you agree. It's one where the Allies can get really bogged down, as you see in the firefight. If they just adopt a straight up firefight against the Germans, they can actually quite easily lose, because they can have too many things to activate compared to the Germans, who can just keep activating and activating and activating. Especially if you put the senior leader next to the heavy machine gun, then you can chuck out a huge weight of firepower, which the Allies just get withered against. But it wasn't to be on this one, for reasons I went into during the game. Needed something over there, and the heavy machine gun was available. And yeah, it was nasty overall for the Germans, though, getting outmaneuvered. But they like I said, they gave a good account of themselves. Yeah, so I hope this, maybe getting more demonstration games is how we get more people into these things, and I do like this set of rules so much. Like I said, hope you enjoyed this game. I certainly did. I've got more Batman to come, I think, now, and I'll be enjoying that too. Haha. Yes, I'll see you next time. Anything I missed or whatever, please let me know, but these are kind of like light-hearted rules anyway, so okay. I'll see you next time. Any suggestions? Give me a shout. Bye bye.